Okay, so we're thrilled to have a visitor today. She's coming to us from San Francisco from one of the leading AgTech companies, which we've had the real privilege to be able to see grow partially here in the research park. And that company is Granular. And wow, they had a spectacular year. It was one of those exits of note that we mentioned on the AgTech panel. And it takes a really different kind of company to achieve traction in the marketplace, offer something of value, as we heard about from the growers. So how do you help their business function? Software products or digital solutions that can make a meaningful impact on a business. And it takes a different kind of entrepreneur that sees that opportunity. So it's my pleasure to have the chance to tell you a little bit more and have Iris tell you a little bit more of her non-traditional story to become the head of product development at such a successful company like Granular. She has a background that includes humanities and includes working in developing countries, and I think it'll inspire you of making a meaningful, mission-driven impact in AgTech. So Iris, please tell us a little bit more about your journey to get where you are today.
Sure. So I did have a bit of an unconventional path to Granular. I studied philosophy of religion in college. So I had as traditional of a liberal arts education as you can get. And after that, I joined a boutique strategy consulting firm out of Colorado that focused on applying spatial analysis to help foundations be more effective with their philanthropic investments. Still no ag involved. And so I learned from early on, though, the idea and the concept of return on investment, even if that investment is in the form of philanthropic dollars. In that work, I had the opportunity to get a fellowship to go to Rwanda and work on the ground with about 40 of the most profitable Rwandan coffee cooperatives. These are special coffee cooperatives all around the country of Rwanda, and that was my first introduction to anything ag-related, and I was absolutely fascinated by it. There was something very tangible about it, and it was really eye-opening to be part of the supply chain and to see the product move throughout the various hands that touch it. And I also was very humbled by how incredibly complex the industry is and how some of the information management tools that we have here in the States could help increase efficiency and profitability for these farm cooperatives. I was so fascinated by it that I decided to pursue an MBA to understand the intersection between agriculture, information management systems, and business. And so that's what I spent my 2 years at Berkeley studying. Was so curious about this problem that I was able to get some funding to see if I could test out whether or not information management software, if given in a lightweight, simple to use way to coffee cooperatives, can help them get better, could help lower loan servicing rates, monitoring evaluation rates, and just help improve the flow of capital. And did that for a couple of years and was going to pursue that after the MBA, and then had a chance to go to Ethiopia for a couple of years, was seconded to the government of Ethiopia to work on smallholder farm production, productivity and markets. Again, not a specific focus on tech necessarily, but again, when I was kind of on the ground there, saw how big of an opportunity there was for better management of information about production to help improve access to capital, access to markets, and just more efficiency on on-farm production. So my service to the government was for about 2 years, and I went back to San Francisco where most of my friends and family were. And that's when I stumbled across Granular, and that was about 4 years ago, and I was fascinated by the mission. And so that's how I came to Granular. Before joining Granular, I spent 2 years as a product manager at an accounting software company called Xero. They're a competitor to Intuit and QuickBooks Online. And I joined them with the explicit purpose of understanding how financial information management software, how the plumbing works underneath. And I did that based on the advice of one of the senior managers of Granular today, who said that's a really valuable tool to bring to the table in the AgTech realm. So I did that for 2 years and then joined Granular right after.
So we're going to get into Granular, but first I want to step back into this incredible sort of story and journey that crossed different disciplines. From studying philosophy, which is, as you'd said, sort of one of the core humanities types of areas at Yale, to deciding to go into a developing country and do mission-driven work to help support agriculture in more of a public policy sort of realm as well, of how it was going to transform and help build a nation as well. And then the accounting background. So there is a long history of accounting at this place. There's a history of humanities and social sciences at this place. And seeing that have an opportunity to impact our land grant institution as well, with the areas that are probably better represented today with agriculture and engineering. Can you talk to us a little bit of how you took some of those background skills and even thought about them being applied to agriculture from a more traditional agriculture sense, and some of the inspiration you might have experienced in Ethiopia and Rwanda that drove you to that conclusion?
Yeah, so I think my role as a product manager means that what I can bring, I don't write lines of code, I don't design mock-ups. And so when I think about how can I help contribute to my team of engineers and designers, I want to bring a specific and unique skill set. And I think product management is an area where a humanities background can really, can hone skills that are very relevant. So I think clear communication skills, I think curiosity, I think a strong sense of fostering teamwork are really important for any role, and specifically in product management. And those are skills that I had to develop in these other roles. And so I think those soft skills and management skills are really important in any software realm.
So that's got to be partially understanding what the customer needs and the customer experience. In the case of, as we'd said, your work in Africa, it was a very different kind of farming environment. How did software help those farmers when you were there, and what did you see that was an improvement in inventory or efficiencies that was achieved by the implementation of better technology or business practices?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got a ways to go. And I think we're starting to see signs, especially with mobile phone penetration and better access to the internet, where you can see some of the efficiency gains that we are already familiar with here. One of the areas that was really exciting to see is basically a hotline that the government sponsored in Ethiopia, where any farmer across the country could call and get agronomic advice through an interactive voice recognition system and an ability to call in and get automated, recorded responses automatically fed back to them. That was one area that was pretty exciting. I think they had already gotten about 3 million calls in the first 18 months of implementation. And so when I think people and investors have seen that when you can prove the model, the uptake is very, very quick. And it's about finding that sweet spot of providing value in a way that's simple and easy to understand. I think there are a lot of parallels to that, the goal and what we're doing at Granular.
So taking us to another part of the world, we're pleased to have a large contingent here from Kazakhstan this week, where farming is booming, and there's a lot of new opportunity to help feed the world in that place, and they're looking to best practices. So I think we're, as a global university, very curious of how we can learn from these stories and see how they fit together and sort of string it in the global context. But let's take you back to how you got to the point of joining Granular, and what appealed to you about Granular? What was it as a company that was working in the ag software space, but in hopefully a more radical way of how they were connecting and saw the opportunity with growers that appealed to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I joined Granular because of the mission. I'm really drawn to the mission, and I think the sweet spot for me when it comes to what I want to spend my days working on is finding a problem that's both interesting and important. Mm-hmm. And I think Granular has nailed that for me, and that's what drew me to it 3 years ago, and it continues to keep me challenged and fulfilled. And its mission, which is to make farming more efficient and more profitable, while also preserving and enhancing the value of farmland, is very much kind of my North Star with the day-to-day work that I do. And so that was the first reason why I was drawn to Granular. The second reason why was the culture. Teamwork is one of our 3 values, and it's the value I love because I find it such a privilege that I get to work alongside such a diverse set of colleagues. Our team has some of the smartest engineers and the smartest designers who also happen to grow up on a family-owned farm, which is just so amazing, and I think is one of the advantages of having a team here in Champaign.
So one of your roles is to oversee the team that's here, and it's both engineers as well as customer experience professionals that are working with your end growers and customers as well. Tell us a little bit about the types of products that are being developed for Granular here in Champaign, and more, and to a larger extent across Granular that you have leadership of currently.
Sure, and just a nuance to that, I don't actually have responsibility over people, and I think that's a specific nuance to my role that makes it both interesting and very challenging, which is that I can be at my best when I can influence without any formal authority. And it makes it so that I really have to dig in with the customer and understand the core, what the core problem is, and understand the solution so I can sell it and convince my teammates that it's something worthwhile. And what we work on, what the product I'm overseeing works on is on the financial side. So I consider myself remote. The whole financials team is here in Champaign, and I'm over in San Francisco. And what we focus on is on the financial analytics in the farm management software. So Granular has 3 software lines today. It has Acre Value, which is the Zillow for farmland. It helps users understand the value of farmland. It has Encirca, which is more focused on the agronomic aspects of farming. And then we have something called farm management software. It's basically a way to manage your workflows on the farm, understand how you are operationally efficient or inefficient. And what our team does is add a financial layer on top of that and translate those records of activity into projected revenue and costs.
Cool. So you obviously joined the company because you had new ideas. Anything that's on your horizons that you can share with us of where you see sort of next generation?
Yeah, I get so excited about all of the types of ideas that have been mentioned throughout the day. Oddly enough, the thing that excites me the most is what brought me to Granular in the first place. I remember reading a blog by one of our advisors, Danny Kleinfelter, and he mentioned, I think this was like 2 years ago now, that with margins being compressed, the winners are going to be those that can identify their strengths and weaknesses, which are reflected in very specific costs and returns. And I think in the last 2 or 3 years where I've been keeping an eye on prices here and the US farm dynamics, I think his words are even more relevant today. And so the problem that I'm still most interested in trying to solve is how can we provide a software that helps our users understand where they're strong and they're weak in specific costs, in specific revenue line items, in a way that's easy to understand and act on. And so it still ranks at the top of my list.
And I think it was great to be able to hear from growers some of the challenges they're thinking about on a day-to-day basis. You've got a team here that is going out to the field in many cases because they're close to it. Describe what it feels like to maybe have this team here versus the San Francisco culture. Yeah. What are the strengths that maybe this environment provides from domain expertise or the physical geography that surrounds us that's farmland?
Yeah, so I mentioned teamwork, and I've heard our CEO talk about our secret sauce being the ability to bring together people with experience in tech who have an interest in ag, together with people who have experience in ag, who have an interest in tech, and you bring those two together and you can have something special. And in Champaign, the team there are people like the other PM on the product manager on the financials team, like the lead engineer on the financials team, who have a background in both ag and tech, who have a passion for both ag and tech. And so you have this combination and in diverse skill sets that really, I think, plays to our advantage. And it makes their ability to kind of dig deep into a problem and really test the frontiers of the problem much easier to do. The fact that we're based in Champaign also lets us kind of connect with our customers much more easily. So just in the last growing season, I think we collectively as a team have gone to our customers. We went to Nolan Farms last year. We visited customers that are, an hour and a half away, and that's something really special that's hard to replicate in San Francisco.
But you are one of the Bay Area success stories as well. So I'm going to come back to that. We're excited that you find that Champaign's a valuable place to grow your business. You also had really strong venture backing in the company, and I'm going to talk about the exit, but I first want to talk pre-exit of a company that was fast growing and some of the mentality and the leadership in the company that you think allowed it to become a relative, what we would think of in the Midwest as an overnight success story, a little faster than perhaps our companies sometimes are able to move with the type of resources that the company had and the backing of some of the very strongest investors in the landscape. What's that climate like, and what are some of the differences that you might see when that's the case?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the culture and specifically the values that we prioritize at Granular as being drivers of our culture. So simplicity, teamwork, optimism. As cheesy as it might sound, I think that's what helped us succeed. And I think on more of a micro level, when I think of my time pre-acquisition at Granular, the times where I felt like we were really making progress was when there was, again, a diversity of skill sets in a team that was unified by this shared sense of a mission. And so, and there was a sense of urgency and motivation that we all shared while also having different perspectives to the same problem. I found that to be powerful in many of the prior roles that I've had, but I think it's been awesome to have that kind of working environment and apply that to a problem that I'm so fascinated by. And I think, that's what I think of when I think of my time at Granular pre-acquisition. And I think in this new era, as we are now part of Dow DuPont Pioneer, we all want to maintain that. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. I mean, we've heard from earlier panelists that there's a huge advantage to the agility that you get when you're a small startup. And I certainly felt that in my early months at Granular. I think everybody wants to maintain that. And we've seen some companies, being able to continue to innovate that, and they're, $4, $5, $6 billion companies in the Bay Area. And I think it's possible. It does take a concerted effort. And mm-hmm. so that's what we're going to try to do.
So it was exciting to hear this announcement, Dow DuPont, and what do you see as how you can help them as a company? So they acquired you, it was big, it was in the industry press that this was one of the best success stories that was happening in AgTech, and they, I imagine, have some opportunity to bring more resources to what was this fairly small company as well. So can you talk about a little of how you think you help them and how they might help you as a company to impact more farmers and deliver that mission that drew you to the company?
Yeah, I think I remember going to Des Moines a few days after the announcement went out and got to meet my future colleagues at Pioneer, and I was telling someone at Granular that I was surprised at how familiar they felt. They felt like the CSM, the customer success manager that we have, was also based in Iowa, and they shared the same mannerisms and same passion to help farmers become more efficient and profitable. And I'm really excited about that because I've been really impressed by the R&D departments and the software teams at DuPont Pioneer, Dow DuPont Pioneer. And I think, again, the challenge will be as we grow to be a much larger team. How do we keep our culture? How do we bring our colleagues from Iowa and from Delaware into the fold? And it's, again, going to take a concerted effort, but I'm more excited and cautiously optimistic than anything. I think it just adds more horsepower, it adds more diversity and years of history of being really excellent R&D. And I'm excited to find ways to leverage that.
So one of the other things that we talked about was that secret sauce of talent. And I know Granular's been growing, at least in Champaign, very quickly from what we've been experiencing and attracting some of the best and brightest. Who Who do you see as part of your team? Who would you like to have? And what kind of backgrounds make sense to you as you have this eclectic experience from your own journey?
Yeah, I'm super excited about how the Champagne team is growing, and it's always such fun to come visit the team here because they have an energy and excitement and optimism around in the office that I think is special. I think specifically in terms of skill sets, I mean, the combination of a background in both ag and tech and an interest in the intersection of both industries is always going to be powerful, but there's a need for every type of function in Champagne, and the office here has everywhere from quality assurance engineers to back-end engineers to front engineers to sales to customer success, to design. It spans the whole range of skills, and I think passion for the mission and specifically in product management, clear communication skills, and an ability to always be curious are really important.
Great. So some of those were soft skills we heard about in a variety of contexts as well, from the farmer seeking that, as well as the technology that's really necessary to power some of these disruptions in the marketplace. I wanted to see if anybody from the audience had any questions for Iris that might want to learn more about their own journey. Some of you as younger startups or as larger industry that's thinking about working with entrepreneurial partners as well. Sort of questions. A shy group of question to ask. Okay, so kind of wrapping on the next sort of part of it, we also had the chance to kind of talk about how this industry is changing and how there might be more automation that makes it possible to farm at greater scale. Hopefully the software and the information systems are allowing these, what seem to be very stressed, very overworked in some cases, growers in the growing cycle to be able to do that with a better and more precise business. Any advice you sort of have to them that are in the room, that are in the agriculture business, of where you see it changing from the business operations and implementation of technology solutions to help them?
Probably not advice. I think if anything, I would continue to encourage growers to put pressure on people like myself to deliver value quicker, to provide the connectedness that you want. Those are at the forefront of my mind as well. And I think I love talking to our customers. I think it's the best perk of the job. I spent last week with one of our account managers here in Illinois. We drove for many hours all across Washington and Oregon talking to our customers, and it's the most challenging and fulfilling part of the job because our customers are not shy about telling us how we can improve, and it's also the best form of feedback. So the only advice is to keep the open lines of communication. I consider growers as our thought partners, and I'm optimistic that we're going to achieve the same efficiency gains that we've seen information technology bring to other industries like manufacturing, construction, commerce.
Great. So you said you traveled all around the country. You love talking to your customers. How are customers different in different parts of the country, growing different crops? And how is the technology adoption different in those different types of agriculture sectors?
That's like a 4-hour response.
Sorry.
But, the short answer is yes, absolutely. That's what makes it so hard, right? It's what makes it so hard and fun. The canola grower in Saskatchewan is going to have very different needs than the grower in the Midwest growing corn soy, than the grower growing grass seeds in Oregon. Fundamentally, conceptually, they want the same thing, right? They want to know where they're strong or weak. They want to understand their cost based on activity. They want to understand variable performance at the field level, sometimes at the subfield level. And so conceptually, they want the same things, but they all have different flavors. And so by crop type, by farm size, by location, there are all sorts of nuances that make it, that always keep me on my toes, I would say.
One thing we heard about earlier today was how technology might move from maybe row crops, and also consider how the livestock industry and those that are producers of animals can adopt better technology solutions to help them with their operations. Any thoughts on that, of where Granular fits in that, or may in the future?
I'm always surprised. I am always surprised at what is just around the corner at Granular. So I can't speak to whether or not we have plans for livestock. I know for myself, as the product manager for financial aspects of FMS, farm management software, one of the things I'm trying to do is remain focused until we nail the ability to deliver consistent value to our customers around showing them where they're strong, they're weak on every single line item of their farm budget. I want to nail that first before we expand our scope. Now, Granular is not just me, and so there's other parts of the company that might be looking at that.
Any other exciting trends you're seeing in AgTech that you think might be good to share with the group as you think about your one company in a what seems to be a fast-growing field that has now a lot of investment, $4 billion or so a year, but that's been in a fairly short amount of time that a lot of that's happening?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that excite me. I think in the short term, so in the long term, I think you're going to see more connectedness with sources of data, like from centerline imagery to machine data, and that all flowing in seamlessly to provide additional sources of information. One of the other amazing aspects of Granular is our data science team, which I think you guys will hear from later today, and the ability to crunch that data in a way that is also meaningful and easy to act on. That stuff is really exciting to me as well. I think in the short term there are, I hope that there is going to be some advancements on having layers between the different software players in the industry to have them talk to each other more seamlessly. My prior role when I was at Xero was all about integrations, and so we would work with the coffee shop all around the world, the coffee shop persona, where they have a point of sale software that manages every credit card transaction. They have a separate software that manages their workforce and the scheduling of their workforce. They have accounting software managing their system of record for financials. And they, too, wanted everything to talk to each other. And that pressure has made all of those separate software vendors create layers, create APIs for everything to flow seamlessly. I think in the short term, I'm really excited to see the AgTech industry move towards that direction and again, deliver the efficiency gains back to the customer.
Great. Well, I think that's a challenge to all of us to think about systems integration and how we work together and not necessarily try to replicate, but be additive in this challenge to feed the world. So please join me in thanking Iris for giving this little fireside chat and telling us more intimately about their business and her journey.